Recording in progress. Recording stopped. Recording in progress. Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
Yep. Good morning, everyone. So, last session we learned about how to handle material UI, MUI. So, material UI, it is a component library. You have ready-made components which you can implement and use in your project, and they are very much required for building interactive UI more faster. So in that last session, I showed you how to use the components, and I asked you to try by yourself other components, right? So like cards, like models and other components, you should try by yourself. So later, when we design a project, in that project, we will use some of these components. We will learn how to implement them in a project, but you must try them. I will show one more example here, means little bit complex. Like suppose I will show another example. This is of UI, UX components. We have, I told you already, UI and UX. UX components, you can see in this, you have a MUIX. So let's go to this UIX components. In that UIX components, you can see there are some components available here. Suppose I will go to get started, and you can see here we have some components like data grid, date and time pickers, the newly added charts. These are little bit more complex ones. That means usually I told you what is difference between UI and UX. UX is about the behavior, design and behavior of an component. That means for behavior and design, they need a more logic. So such logics are already implemented. For example, you see here, generally to use this UX components, actually they have only few components. Data grid is one, date time pickers, charts they newly added actually. When you look at this component, you see charts, and you see the charts will look like this. How to create these different types of charts? For every charts, they have a sample. And actually, um, these are very popularly used in dashboard design. That means in websites, we create dashboards. Dashboard means when you initially log in with your account, what recent activities you've done, what contents you watched already. So you have a customized dashboard. These dashboard designs are very regularly asked in interviews also. Means interviews means in practical test. When you go to companies for interviews, they ask design one dashboard for this particular purpose. And usually dashboards contains charts, graphs. So summary about the activity performed. For example, you have a shopping website like Amazon, Flipkart. When you go login, immediately your customized dashboard will come. What recent items you viewed, what recent items you purchased, what items you ordered, and what is their status, such dashboards. Later, we will create one project. In that, we will implement this. So, but these are not simple like UI components. Actually, UI components you can simply use with the help of the ready-made library you installed, MUI library. But these UX components, every component needs a separate library again. So we will see one example. So what is UX component? So what is the point about UI UX component? So React MUI provides provides rich UX components, rich UX components. So like we have like date and time pickers, data grids, we have like charts. So what is the point is UX components uses business logic for more interactions. UX components uses business logic for more interactions and behavior. So so every UX component is used as a service. Already I told you, service means it is a predefined business logic, and for services you need providers, injectors. Service I already explained in the topic of hooks. Service means it comprises of predefined business logic which you can inject and use according to your requirements, customize. So, and you know that service needs providers. They need additional library. That means only MUI is not enough. Every component requires a separate library. So that means every component requires various providers and adapters to plug in. Require every component require various providers and adapters to plug in. We need providers and adapters to plug in. I will show one example. For example, I will show how to put a date picker. We will see example of a date picker. And as you saw already in their website, some new features are added. They added recently charts. In charts also, they haven't added all type of charts. Only few charts they added, and others they said that they are in the roadmap. They are under development. In few days they may come. Right. That's the reason I told you that you need to keep in touch of this website officially, because every few months some new things will happen, some new components will come, existing components will change. Like, let's see how to use this date picker. Actually, we have date picker in general HTML. In HTML, we have a input type date. What is the drawback of that? You in HTML you used input type date. Input type date will show a date picker. Then why I need another date picker with React? The HTML date picker will not allow to select range of dates. It will allow you to select only a specific date. For example, you see Make My Trip or any ticket booking sites, their calendars look different. In the calendar, they can show holidays on a particular date, which is not possible in HTML calendar. HTML calendar cannot show that. Then how they are using all those calendars? They are all third party. Do you know jQuery have some third party calendars we can use? Through jQuery, so many are there. Uh, Several people before Angular and React, they used to design everything with jQuery. Now people who are working on Angular and React, they have separate component library. For Angular people also, they have separate library. Component library for Angular, component library for React. Both are different. And what is specialty is they provide more features. So you see now we have a date picker, date and time pickers. Let's go to date and time picker. Let's see the overview. You see, this is the date and time picker. And this is a date picker. And this is a time picker. And actually, this is a date range picker. Here you can select the range of dates from which date to which date. You can choose like that. But to implement these are not directly available in JavaScript, HTML. If we have to design like this, it will take a lot of time. But now advantage is we can simply implement by using any third party. But see here, they are saying that Date Pickers Pro library is commercially licensed. You have to pay money. And normal date picker is free MIT license. Little bit more complex date time pickers you want, you have to pay money. That means in that they are not providing everything for free. So you have to pay money. That means nothing but if you pay money, you can download the libraries which are commercial. And when you run those libraries, they will verify your license. And according to that, they will provide the component. So that means internally they have a license key. Through that, they will verify and provide the component. Even you copy that library and paste it and try to use it, when you run, automatically it will block you. That is the reason it's waste of time to copy and paste and use the pro libraries, because they give code but they don't work. That is for the people who buy it. You can try free one. Let's see how to use it. But they are not as simple as you have seen the button, you have seen text field. It is not like that, because button text field, how you just import one class name, module name, and you import the component and add some properties. But here separate library is required. Let's see how it is required. So let's implement the date pickers. For that, first make sure that you installed MUI is compulsory. First, what you have to do to implement this date picker, first you have to install MUI library, which already we done yesterday. So MUI library we already installed. This is the MUI library. Yeah. This is the library you have to install. That is the library you have to install. Already yesterday we done that. So this is MUI, MUI emotion, MUI React, and MUI style. always use the flag save, that is better, because sometimes what happens is when you download a library, can you tell me where these library files are copied? Into a folder called node modules. Sometimes when you install any another library which may be related to this material library, it will reset that folder. That means node modules folder resets. That means never try to add anything manually into node modules. It will work for that particular situation. After that, when you install any another library, that node modules will reset. When it resets, some temporary libraries are deleted. We have to tell that this is not a temporary library. This is a permanent library I want to use for project. For that, we have to use the flag called save. Save is to tell that this is I am using permanently. So even you don't use save, some libraries are saved, but some are not. Then what happens? Today you installed, tomorrow you come and open, it will say it is not there. That means it will automatically reset. So the library, that is the reason better always use this flag. After that, now every UX component is complex and have individual library. So to set up date and time pickers, you have to install. To set up date and time pickers, you have to install this library. You have to install this library. npm install @MUI x date pickers. This is the special library required for that component, for that UX component. So this is an UX component. And actually, every UX component may need some dependency. For example, calendars. You remembered while working with date data type in the beginning of data binding. I told you data binding concept. There I explained how to bind different types of data. Array, object, string, numbers, date. If you have observed, we have a problem with date. Actually, to present date, what are the methods we have? To date string, to local date string, to time string, to local time string, to get hours, get months, get day. These are all date and time functions. Already in data binding, I given a list. The problem is React will not support all the functions of date and time. Some date and time functions are not allowed in React. That means React cannot use the date functions that JavaScript is having, because actually JavaScript uses the date format from a browser window. Actually, browser window tells which region you are using. That means generally when you install your PC, you will select that region is New Delhi, according to GMT 5 hours. Am I right? That means when you install a PC, in that all apps are set to the region that you selected. Even your browser also uses the same region. Region means English, India, and time zone is Delhi, Mumbai, Chennai, Calcutta, like that. It uses the time zone, 5 hours GMT and all. So now problem is date local format is taken from a browser and React cannot access the DOM because browser DOM React cannot directly access. React depends on not virtual DOM. So those local methods are not available in React. So for example, see here, suppose you want to display some date. You want to display the date or manage the date. It is not supported. Already while learning data binding also, I showed you that point. So generally, how you define a date and how do you store the date is like we have constant and suppose MFD, set MFD, set manufactured is equal to use state. And into that MFD, suppose I am using use effect. So in this MFD, what we need to do, this is use effect. Okay. Now we will set date here, set MFD. Into that, we will pass some date. So that means what we will do, we will allocate a date memory. That means we are using what new, the date constructor we are using. We are using the date constructor. After that, what we will do, we will try to display the date somewhere. I will clean up all this. Somewhere here we want to display the date. So usually how we can display the date? So username and name change all I will delete. Yeah. How to display the date is, so we will use that MFD. MFD is the state. I will use it. Let's see here. Let it compile. Yeah. So you will see that it is going to display that. We will inspect also. So to get the issues in the console. Okay, now you can see that it is showing objects are not valid as React child. That means you see a date object, new memory is allocated. I will just use a new date, means just date constructor I am passing into that. Now it will show the date. Why new is not allowed? Because already state is allowing, state is allocating memory. In that memory, again, you cannot allocate a new memory. Just you have to access an object. So how to display in a good format? To display in a good format, actually this MFD is having, it's a date. Then we have options like to local to date string is there. You know that in JavaScript we have to dot string. To date string, usually it shows an error. It is not a function. It is unable to access that. But generally, here, so where MFD is equal to new date. After that, MFD dot to date string, it is going to display like this. It is present. It is present as date. It is available. That function is available, but it is unable to use it because that is actually the DOM methods. So which React cannot use. For example, suppose I am writing like get hours or get date. So get date is a method. You see the get date method is also not available. That's also not available. But you know that there is get date, get hours, get date and all. So when you are using such additional components, then here specially UX component requires special adapters, special adapters to plug in, to plug in, so that they can interact with virtual DOM, interact with virtual DOM. Sorry, not virtual DOM, interact with actual DOM. They can interact with the actual DOM. So UX component requires special adapters to plug in so that they can interact with actual DOM. So here, especially date and time components require date and time adapters. The popular adapters, the popular are actually, you see here, they will give you some adapters. They say that here you can see there is an option here. So here, set up your date adapter. That means the date adapters are very much required. And you see, there are so many date adapters, day.js, date FNS, Loxon, Moment. These are the popular adapters. In interviews also, they ask this. Many React interviews recently, they ask, can you name any adapter for date and time pickers? So that means how to use date time in React, because you cannot use date time simply like that. In JavaScript, you can do that, but in React, it is difficult. It will not support. That is the reason it is almost several interviews of React have a question about which date adapter you use, which date adapter you know, because every project will not use the same adapter. Very popular adapter about date is Moment. There is an adapter called Moment. Several companies, projects, they use that adapter. Remember, every adapter have different set of functions for displaying date in a good format, in a clean format. They have some functions. That is the reason you need these adapters. Need adapters. So you can use any of these adapters. So what are the popular adapters available is One is Day.js is one adapter. Luxon is an adapter. Date FNS, and we have moment moment is an adapter. These are the popular date and time adapters required for handling date and time in React. Even to use an ordinary date and time displaying also, you need these adapters. Remember, they are not only for MUIX, ordinary date handling also done by using this. These adapters are installed and used by React people almost in every project, because a project requires date and time. Because usually any app will show date, time, good morning, they put a salutation. All that is done by using date time functions only. In that case, they need these adapters. You have to set up any adapter. So you can install any adapter. You see, when you select a adapter, the adapter related logic will come. Adapter will related logic will come. That means these adapters you have to install like this. What you have to do? npm install day.js, like that. Day.js is one adapter. Luxon, datefns, moment. These are the adapters. And once you set up these adapters, then you are ready to use it. You can ready to use. Another point is, uh, we discussed that this is an, which one? Localization provider. Yeah. Actually, so here another point is, these are provided as services. We discussed that every UX component is a service. Service means, we need a provider. I already showed you use context. Use context needs a provider. What is the job of provider? Provider locates the value in the memory and it defines the scope where you can access the value. So what you have to do is you have to configure localization provider that uses localization provider that uses date adapter that uses date adapter. Configure localization provider that uses date adapter to display date and time values in React. So localization provider will be in this way. A simple localization provider is there. Yeah, this is the syntax actually. Localization provider adapter DJS. So here your component. Your component must be defined inside that so that it can use it. Yeah, adapter.js. Usually, if you define this in index.js, all components can use. You can use it for any specific component also. But if you put in index.js, it is available to all components. So after you do all this, now it is ready to use. We can implement it. So that means MUI components and UX components are little different. UI components, the core library is enough. You just import and use. But UX components, some lot of dependencies are required. You have to set up all the dependencies, make sure that you are not missing any adapters and all, then it will work. Let's see. So already in our project, we installed MUI. Now we have to install this one. What is that? Date pickers. Let's install the date pickers. I am installing MUI X date pickers. And to use the date pickers, you need a date adapter. So make sure that you are installing that adapter also. You can use Moment, or you can use Luxon, or you can use Date DNS, FNS, or DJS. Okay, I will install the adapter also. npm install DJS and save. I'm installing the DJS adapter also. Okay, now you have to set up the provider. Without provider, you cannot use a service. Index.js, here we will import. You have to import. Which one to import? You need to import localization provider from date pickers. Import localization provider. And this component should use that localization provider. And this localization provider have to tell which adapter to use. That means date adapter, which adapter. We installed which adapter? DayJS adapter. You have to import. So DayJS adapter. Adapter DayJS. Yeah. We have adapter DayJS. What is its name? So from DayJS. Okay. From DayJS. Adapter DayJS is there. The name we will check. Adapter DayJS is there. MUI date pickers only. So from MUI date pickers, adapter DJS. Okay, this is the library. We have to import from adapter DJS. Okay, this adapter DJS we have to use it. That is the adapter DJS we have to use. That is fine. The adapter is ready and the provider is ready. And remember, this will work only for this component. right? So now let's run this and see. We will remove this. We want to just display the date. So what are the components they provide? Actually, what is the component they provide? You can import which component? Date calendar component from date picker. We have a date calendar component and I want to use that component. So this is date picker. Okay. And we are using date calendar. That's it. I'm using the date calendar component. That means it will show the date calendar component like this. This is the date calendar component. It is only calendar component. You have another one. Instead of means in that they are having so many. We have date calendar. We have like date picker. We can use a date picker, date calendar, date picker, anything. So this is actually date calendar and this is actually date picker. Date picker looks different actually. You see date picker looks different. You have a date picker, you can click, you can select a date, it will give it. Date calendars are different, date pickers are different. There is a date range picker also, date range picker, but that is a premium one. You have to pay money for that. They are not freely available. So date range, actually you have a date range picker. For date range picker, so we have to separately install one more. Here it is having only icon. So we don't have a range picker separately. Date range picker, we don't have a date range separately. Because it is a premium one. They given as a pro version, you have to buy and install and use it. So generally, if you have set up, remember, any one option is missing, it will not work. That means you forgot to install date adapter. You forgot to mention the provider in index.js. That means if you miss anything, suppose you forget this provider, adapter is not there, adapter is not mentioned, then you will have an error here. So the problem is it says that you forgot the date adapter to pass. You need to mention the date adapter. And you have to install the date adapter. If you don't install the date adapter, it will not work. These are all important basics to follow. So what you do after installing this? Now, how to implement? So implement date pickers. How to implement that? So go to index.js and in index.js, you have to import this. I will copy this code for you. It's only this code I'm giving. These two are required, right? And you need to configure the provider. The provider you need to configure. That is the code you need to set up. Next, what you do is go to your component and import date calendar or date picker. You can import date calendar or picker just like this. From the date pickers, you can import and use them. So date calendar, we have a date picker. We can use this. And remember, this is the approach till date, what is present in that library. After 1 month, what change will be there, nobody knows. That's the reason you need to explore and keep in touch regularly with this. Because as I told you, React, one major issue is it is very rapidly developed, means rapidly growing library. That means imagine in 2014 it started. In 2014 it started, and now it is 10 years, and we have 18 versions. 18 versions. Technologies like even Java.NET have 8, 9, 10 versions, 12 versions like that. That means every year minimum 2 versions will come. And it is very difficult for a developer to adapt the new version immediately, because if they just added new things, that's fine. If they reconstructed everything, then headache. And these days, to give better performance, what they are doing is several libraries they are reconstructing. That is becoming one bigger headache for React people. Not only React, even Angular also. So the problem is they are reconstructing library instead of extending the library. And what is the cause? They are telling that for better performance, we are doing it. That is okay. But for a developer to adapt every new thing, he need to keep on exploring. Otherwise, they fail. Because remember, 3-4 months back, what React people learned about material and what you are learning about material may be different. Why? Because some new features may be added into that. So I showed how to implement a calendar. You try grid. You remembered we designed our own grid. I, I told you custom components now. In custom components, we designed our own grid, our own grid. Actually, you see, these people already have such grid. Go to MUI components. You see, they already have a data grid ready-made. And see how it looks like overview. But this grid have all functionality. You see, the grid looks like this. This is the grid, including sorting, filtering. I also showed you the how to design like this. I showed you manually how to design like this. But what is the specialty here is they already implemented it. You just use it. You pass your data into it, it will be ready. Already we done this. So already such grid we designed here in custom components data grid. I already showed you. I already showed you how to design it with controlled. That means you can pass data, it will show the data. The same thing they already have. That means now what you can do is you can use this. You see, this is Pro. Pro is a paid version, and this is the free one. And in that, they will give you sort by ID. You can sort by ID. And if you look at the code, you can see this is the code. That means grid have field. We also added the same field names, data. Just what you have to do is you have to add the rows. That means into that we will have properties. Data grid have rows, data grid have columns. Same concept. Only the point is some additional properties they may add it. This I showed you manually. We manually designed it. I showed you how to create such grids with different types of data. These are already available. You can try them. So do you know what additional they will provide here? Additional is like you can export this into PDF or Excel format, which is a very common requirement. In several React practical interviews also they ask. Later in one project implementation, I will show you how to export. For that, we need a pro version. That means we need to buy some plugins. In the free version, they given simple things, but in pro version, they given save to PDF, save to Excel format. So that means you can see they have a premium versions and there are more features in those premium versions. In the free version, a simple one is given. In the commercial version, you see they give an export. Export what? You can export to Excel, CSV, right? But they are not free. You have to purchase them and use them. But you try the free level up to free level, that is enough. That means again what you do, you have to install the grid and you have to import and use the grid. So you try this other components by yourself. I explained few, you have to try others, right? Next, after this, in some examples, we will use these all MUI. That means instead of Bootstrap, we will try using this MUI in our project, right? Now, next important topic is in React, you need to understand about React routing. Routing is another major concept in React. So up to now, you learned about all the components related concept, class component, function components, controlled, uncontrolled components, pure, impure components, right? Now, what is this routing? Actually, in web application, so web applications have to use various techniques. Web applications have to use various techniques. Like some techniques already you learned, like data binding, style and class binding, event binding, model binding, caching, state management. So routing, security, these are all techniques. These are popular techniques in almost every web application. Whether it may be even Java, .NET, PHP, Python, any web application means it will have all these. That means every web application in the world. So from Java, .NET, PHP, Python, Angular, React, Vue, every web application will have these. That means the topics like data binding, style, class binding, event binding is not just only for you. Every web application have that. Even in JavaScript also we have this. In JavaScript, how you manage this concept of routing? That means without using anchor links, how you can bring the content of any another HTML page into your page. In general JavaScript, without using anchor, how you will bring the content of another page and load in the current page. That means suppose I am in home page, home.html page, and there is a login page. There is a some register page. Now in home, you have two options, login and register. Now when I click login, it will navigate to login. That is link. But when I click login, this login should come here. How you will implement that? How you will do it in general JavaScript? This can be done by using XML HTTP object, XML HTTP request object, or we use fetch. What do you think XML HTTP and fetch is only for JSON APIs? Huh? No, any kind of document they can handle. You can also use jQuery AJAX methods. By using that, you bring the data and add. So that means without reloading the page, we can get new details into the page. Without refreshing the page, we can post only specific portion in the page. That is what actually the concept of what AJAX. Through AJAX, we can achieve this. That means you can handle the complete navigation by using AJAX. AJAX helps you to handle that. Generally, we use AJAX only for navigation. That means to build a complex navigation with AJAX, it's a difficult thing. Lot of concept is required. For example, I will tell you, suppose I'm having demo. I'm having some another page, login.html. Roughly, I'm giving. Suppose this is a user login, data list, data term, some user ID, some text box. Input type is equal to text. Okay, now here I put a button and login. And I will keep a div. So ID container. On login button click, I want to get the login page and display there. On login button click, I need to get a login page and display here. That is the requirement. Generally, what you do, you will put it as a link and you will navigate from one page to another. But what is the nature of single page application? User will stay on only one page and everything comes onto that page. How? That means now what you have to do, you have to write here like on click, on click, on click, suppose login click. On login click, suppose I am writing like a script and a function login click. On login click, I am using fetch. Fetch. And what is that fetch? Fetch is fetching the data login dot what? HTML and dot then. So we have a callback function response. This response should return response dot what? So you see response, we are using JSON now, but response have lot of details. So suppose I am using the response as some response text, or just I will use the response. This is the response actually. This is the response. If I directly try to print that response, let's see here. So console.log, I will print the response. Whatever response comes, we will print that response initially. Okay. So whatever response comes, that response we are printing here. Okay. Usually what happens is inspect, and on the login click, we are getting the response and displaying the. You can see response type is a URL. Response have lot of details, and the response URL is this one. So for example, I'm using response.what text. Response.text means on login click, it will get the text. The native code is in which form? HTML form. Actual, what we do is response have body. Response body is nothing but it will get the body. It is a stream. Stream means HTML, data, text streams and all. Usual point is this response we need to display inside this container. Whatever response comes, it will display in container. This is using an AJAX call, bringing the data from that particular file and using it. In reality, what we do, we don't use this. In reality, how we do is, I will show here. We will just put a button, nothing special here. Means in real time projects, we don't use these fetch and all. What we do, we use jQuery. I think we install jQuery now. Script source, what it is, node modules, jQuery. In node modules, jQuery is there. Not set dot slash. Node modules, yeah, jQuery dist jQuery.js. And here we will put script. Actually, jQuery uses a function. This function will use an dollar dot as X. Actually, we will use button. Button have a click. So on the click, what we have to do, we will use dollar dot what as X. As X have to use the method. Method is what? Get. URL is from login dot what? HTML. And we have success. On success, we'll get the response. And what we need to do is, so dollar dot hash what? Container dot HTML. In that we will put the response. We are getting that response and showing. This is actually all the jQuery functions. It will get the login and show. This is how we implement in reality. It's a lengthy process. This is what actually is access. You have login, you have register, everything we manage like this. This is lengthy approach. Now this is what React wants to do. That means user must stay in the same page and get access to everything in that page. And this mechanism is called as what? Routing. And for that, you don't need to write so much AJAX. It is already inbuilt. Just you have to use some ready-made components, then the complete navigation is ready. That means to create a simplified navigation in single page application, we need a technique called as what? Routing. What is the specialty of routing is, routing allows, routing implicitly uses AJAX and it allows you to get the new data without reloading the page. That is the ability. Actually, without routing, we can do like this. Just now I showed you, we use jQuery as an extender. In reality, before React and Angular, we used to build the single page application. I told you now, world first single page application is Twitter. Twitter is there before React Angular as there. And how it is built, all done by using jQuery on. So we can avoid that and we can use a simplified technique, routing. So what is the concept of routing? Routing is a technique that allows to configure user and SEO friendly URLs. User and SEO friendly URL. It implicitly configures Ajax. It implicitly configures Ajax that makes navigation simplified. It allows to load new content into page without reloading the page. It is the primary technique used to design SPA. What is SPA? Single page application. Single page application. The primary technique used to design single page application is routing. Actually, routing is configured server side and client side. Generally, server side routing is also there. Actually, you used fake store API. Fake store API is using server side routing. I will show you server side routing also. In one project implementation, we will implement both. Server side routing requires some knowledge in server side technologies, Java, PHP, or .NET, or Node.js. We can implement server side routes. We can create APIs with server side route. React is using client side route. So client side, server side, both. And for that, we need a separate routing library to create such navigation. So what we will do now, all these days, what you are doing every day, when you design a component and you want to test, you are going to index and you are changing that component. No need to do that anymore. You will have only one component every day, but from that component, you can access others. That means every day in startup, there will be only one component. From there, you can access everything. That is what we are going to build, a simple routing technique that we'll see tomorrow. So in tomorrow's session, we will learn how to implement this routes. So installing routes, setup routes, and we will create a single page application. We will learn how to build a single page application using routing. Okay. Right.